know what you're thinking. Fully grown man in a bath. A bit weird, isn't it? Or you could be thinking, fully grown man in a bath. I bet he's clean. And you're right, I am clean. I don't know what I'd rather people think. Despite what I say, do, and really feel deep down, I don't actually care what people think about me. I don't want people looking at me now, here like this, thinking, what a complete gimpy weirdo. But on the other hand, I don't want people looking at this and thinking, that is completely normal behaviour. There's no definitive answer to what this is. Only interpretation. One person's dream can be another's nightmare. And there is no better artist than David Lynch at capturing these uncertainties, mysteries of life. And I'm going to show you some of his work. Enjoy.
Lynch's debut feature, Eraserhead, baffled and repulsed both critics and audiences alike upon its arrival in 1977, and still feels strange and unquestionably unique today. By no stretch of the imagination the first surrealist film, Eraserhead has nonetheless become the archetypical cult film, no doubt because it's an English language film made by a white man, but because of its boldness in how it disregards the significance of character development and plot, instead showcasing a sideshow, or should I say, slideshow of distinct, abstract, and utterly bizarre sequences, most famously gruesome scenes involving the dissection of protagonist Henry Spencer's part humanoid, part reptilian newborn child. And look at this sequence, a musical number conducted by the character billed as Lady in the Radiator, who has a moon-shaped face. And the sequence from which the film gains its title, in which our protagonist is decapitated and then has his severed head taken to a pencil factory to be recycled as erasers. This is all, of course, after the film's opening 10 minutes, which Wikipedia summarises as following. The man in the planet pulls levers in his home in space, while the head of Henry Spencer floats in the sky. A giant spermatozoon-like creature emerges from Spencer's mouth, floating into the void. Referred to by most detractors as impenetrable, I think Eraserhead is in fact the opposite. Through disregarding the function of normative dialogue and narrative convention, Eraserhead invites us to penetrate its abstract imagery in whatever way we see appropriate. Lynch never discusses the meaning of his films or his images, instead leaving it to the audience to allocate their own meaning, championing literary critic Roland Barthes' theory, outlined in The Death of the Author, that once a piece of art is made available to the audience, the creator's interpretation isn't so much redundant, but irrelevant. The early scenes in which our protagonist wanders through an unnamed abandoned landscape immediately invited me into this world, as it looks as though it could have been shot in and around any of the industrial wastelands found across towns and cities in the north of England. Henry's nightmarish experiences attempting to care for his alien-like infant son, who is constantly screaming in agony, has been widely interpreted as illustrating paternal fears and anxieties. But the film is not just concerned with the terror of becoming a parent, but of adult life in general, with its increasing responsibilities and pressures, whether they be the pressures of finding a home to live, which is shown in the film by Henry's soil and vegetation covered apartment. The film also shows the difficulties of adult relationships, such as Henry's disintegration relationship with the mother of his child. We get to see an unaffectionate sexual relationship he has with his neighbour.
Can I spend the night here?
Do I just cut them up like regular chickens?
Sure, just cut them up like regular chickens.
Henry can't even feed himself without his meal reanimating before him and oozing blood. This scene in particular eerily reminds me of when I first met my in-laws. The film's colour palette isn't so much black and white as it is grey. The same can be said of any fixed meaning to the film's disturbing imagery. There are no fixed, easy answers to the film, just as there aren't in the journey of developing from a dependent infant child into a functioning, responsible adult. It's just a murky world of confusion, and to quote the band The National, the film is an uninnocent, elegant fall into the unmagnificent lives of adults. Lynch again used physical deformity as a visual means of expressing themes of modern alienation with the much more accessible Oscar-lauded The Elephant Man, based on the life of Joseph Merrick, before reaching the low point of his career, even at this early stage, with the commercial and critical disaster of sci-fi epic Dune in 1984. Some people like it. It just looks really weird, before he bounced back with another staple of cult cinema in 1986, the surreal, sadistic erotic thriller Blue Velvet. It's hard to say anything remotely new or insightful about the film because it's been dissected so vigorously, in particular its sublime opening sequence, which pairs images of suburban bliss with its smiling neighbours and white picket fences. And if you look closely enough on the fire engine, there's a little dog there just looking at the camera, and after you see the picket fences and that, it veers down to the insects below. And as the camera pans down to look at the insects, the Bobby Vinton's vintage 1950s track Blue Velvet is replaced by Angelo Badalamenti's more sinister industrial score. Blue Velvet differs from Eraserhead in the way that it offers audiences a more conventional narrative. It's a narrative stylised around film noir, with its variation on the detective mystery and femme fatale tropes. Here, the tough, hard-boiled detective is replaced by a curious and inquisitive college student called Jeffrey Beaumont. Jeffrey's investigating the discovery of a severed ear, which leads him into the life of the sexually alluring nightclub singer Dorothy Valens. She conforms to the formula of the femme fatale in that she's got a seductive and hypnotic power which she exhibits over Jeffrey. However, the conventions are defied, should I say, in how Dorothy is neither villainous, she's not morally ambiguous, but instead she's desperate to escape the routine, masochistic brutalizations that she suffers at the hands of Dennis Hopper's now iconic and utterly psychopathic villain, Frank Booth.
Spread your legs. Wider. Now show it to me. Oh, Mommy! Mommy! Mommy.
Mommy loves you.
Baby wants to fuck. Get ready to fuck! You fuckers, fucker! You fucker! Don't you fucking look at me!
One memorable sequence shows drug-dealing brothel owner Ben lip-sync to Roy Orbison's In Dreams for the pleasure of Frank as a spellbound Jeffrey watches in bewilderment.
A candy-colored clown they call the Sandman tiptoes to my room every night just to sprinkle stardust and to whisper, go to sleep, everything is alright. I close my eyes, then I drift away into...
Despite being a more plot-driven film, Blue Velvet has attained its cult status for its bold juxtaposition of pleasant mundanity with unspeakable horror, and blossoming romantic love with scenes of violent sexual humiliation. All of this again highlights the confusion and anxieties over modern adult life, where nothing is as it seems and where there are no certainties, only complexities and jarring transitions. Lynch continued to explore the idea that underneath the facade of normality lies a sinister underbelly in the quintessential cult and highly influential series Twin Peaks, and its criminally underappreciated part prequel, part sequel, Twin Peaks Firewall with Me. The film was booed at its Cannes Film Festival premiere, publicly despised by Quentin Tarantino, and declared by Times critic Vincent Canby as not the worst film ever made. It just seems to be. In retrospect, both the film and the series are hailed both as deliriously bizarre, yet heartfelt, harrowing depictions of the dark side of human nature. Twin Peaks feels like a living, breathing town, both tranquil and routine, yet where nothing is as it seems and everyone hides a shadow self. It does this through a variety of ways. The breathtaking beauty of the show's cinematography, with its grand hotel, magnificent waterfalls, haunting woods, the iconic ethereal soundtrack, once ranked by Enemy as the greatest film soundtrack of all time, its cast of quirky and unquestionably strange characters,
Oregon!
ranging from coffee-loving protagonist, Special Agent Dale Cooper, who solves crimes by collecting clues from his surrealist dreams.
She's in high school. She is sexually active. She's using drugs. She's crying out for help.
Well, damn, Cooper, that really narrows it down. You're talking about half the high school girls in America.
And by conversing with the town's otherworldly spirits, such as a giant and a backward-speaking dwarf.
Do you know who I am?
Sticking with the mystery angle from Blue Velvet, Twin Peaks follows Cooper's arrival to the town and his investigation into the grisly murder of the town's teenage homecoming queen. The show blends a variety of genres, from police procedural, with its clue finding and suspect interrogating.
Are you talking about that little girl that got murdered?
You got something to tell us?
I know shit from Shinola.
Soap opera parody, with its melodramatic subplots of shady business deals and adulterous relationships. Supernatural elements, with its otherworldly dimensions, spirits, possessions, quirky comedy, and then to legitimately terrifying scenes of sheer horror. This multitude of different genres creates a unique, discomforting atmosphere and tone to the show and film, and many have found the show too weird to truly enjoy. The film in particular was scalded, with Lynch being criticised as becoming pretentious in just how bizarre some of its sequences were, such as David Bowie's brief cameo in which he describes a gathering as some rather peculiar looking spirits before literally disappearing and never to be seen again.
I'm not going to talk about Judy. In fact, we're not going to talk about Judy at all. We're going to keep her out of it.
Gordon?
I know, Coop.
Who do you think this is there?
Suffered some bumps in the old noggin, eh, Phil?
What the hell did he say there, Albert? That's Special Agent Dale Cooper. For God's sakes, Jeffries, where the hell have you been? You've been gone damn near 2 years.
I sure as hell want to tell you everything.
Many believed it was weirdness for the sake of weirdness, and that Lynch had become a parody of the provocative and progressive filmmaker he once was. I think this is nonsense, and that the surrealist, jarring nature of the show and film were vital in exploring what is the central theme, which is incest. Lynch chooses not to explore the unspeakable horrors of incest with direct, brutal filmmaking like Tim Roth did in The War Zone, but instead portrays it as an abstraction, something so incomprehensible and nightmarish that it cannot be depicted, understood, or comprehended in a straightforward manner, but instead through a series of jarring, seemingly disconnected, surrealist vignettes. The lack of absolute understanding and concrete meaning in Lynch's work is the point. His films, like the world that we live in, are there for us to bring our own interpretation to.